Now, I would like to call upon our special guest, Ritika Mittal, to share her learning with us. Ritika is also known as Akala Keduchala Admire. She started her journey in 2009 with Mora, where indigenous crafts are celebrated. Each design at Mora is a co-creation with weavers and artisans because Ritika believes that rural communities have their only skills and their only skills are the ability to survive. She gracefully connected Northeast and Himalayas and celebrated the geographical difference by nurturing artisanal communities across India. With her strong efforts, she has been able to rejuvenate lives in beneficiary projects like Thevo project in Nagaland and Ahimsa Aerosol project in Assam. It's our pleasure to have you here, Ratika. And I have, sorry. I would like all the participants, if you have any questions for Ritika, please feel free to drop it in the chat box and Ritika will be happy to answer it. As we all know, Ritika, that many of our crafts and weaves are on verge of extinction. How important it is to have cultural preservation in your point of view? Over to you, Ritika.
Firstly, thank you so much for giving me this platform to speak. And happy National Handloom Day. It truly connects our heads, heart, eyes, legs, feet, everything to bring together this common movement towards progress and sustainability. So thank you so much for giving this platform and also for asking me this question about cultural preservation. I come from a family that has culturally appropriated most of the cultures in their semi-urban setting. So we have lost our culture to the extent that the only true culture that remains in my family is of personal ethics and human values. And with that lens, I ventured out into the Northeast in 2009 and from there progressed to other Himalayan communities in Ladakh and also in Nepal. And I came across indigenous communities that have retained their indigenous faith for thousands of years now, to some of them who started to convert maybe 400, 500 years back, to some of the communities that started their conversion 40 or 50 years back, to some of the communities now that are converting as we speak. So through this diverse lens of what indigenous culture means, I present to you my thoughts on cultural preservation, because just the fact of this diversity of indigenous history evokes the question of what is culture, what is loss of culture, and what is preservation of culture. So my talk today will focus on the various indigenous communities that I have worked with. And my experience with them about how the rigidity that a culture brings vis-a-vis the dynamic nature of modern change evokes the questions of what a community thinks they need to preserve and what they think they are losing. So because of the very nature of change, protection, fear are not the handy solutions towards preservation of culture. So how does one evolve themselves to the idea of preservation? So when we talk about rigidity and fluidity of culture, the questions or the protection chapters like GI tag becomes very important. Now, GI tag can be looked at in so many different ways. GI tag totally depends on the intention of the GI tag holder. Does the GI tag holder want to preserve, or does the GI tag holder wants to own? So geographical indication directly suggests that a textile must indicate the geography of the textile. Let me start sharing my slides with you. Do I have the permission to share the slides?
Yeah, you have.
That was wonderful, Ritika. And I would like to ask about your study of ethnography through design and how it was helpful in your journey.
Are you able to see my slides?
No, we can't. We can't see.
Okay. Just give me a minute because there is a lot of good content that I can share through the slides.
Yeah.
Could you see now?
Yes.
So yeah, so in these last 12 years, I've been able to connect with hundreds of different communities, but my level of immersion would be, say, around with 40 to 50 different communities, some of the names that you can see here. And through these communities, I began to question the concepts of culture, loss of culture, and preservation of culture. And that from my personal belief, I feel that any kind of revival of culture is based on preservation and not protection. And hence, the ideas of GI tag become very integral and delicate questions to talk about. So when a community or an organization that holds the GI tag is well intentioned, then their GI tagging is based on study or research that leads to preservation of their culture. They truly try to understand what was their traditional history, understand their geography around, what kind of natural dyes, fibers, motifs directly represent their textile. That would be a preservation through GI tag. But ownership through GI tag, which is a concept that I don't really believe in, would be a haphazard, hurried mix of different textiles put together, which could be traditionally indigenous owned, or they could be acquired or shared in the tribal or the indigenous history, or just modified out of some creative input of some of the individuals in the recent past. So understanding what are we trying to preserve in GI tag registration, I think is a very, very important point. And one must remember that GI tagging our own identity leads to preservation. But GI tagging a haphazard collection of identity leads to loss of identity. So one must look at preservation and not merely ownership when it comes to GI tag. Here I would like to bring a very important and one of my favorite communities that I have worked with, which is Idumishmi community of Arunachal Pradesh, that have GI tagged their traditional male jacket called Etokozo. And it is a community-owned GI tag where the textiles are made with consent, compensation, collaboration, and credit to the community. And when I worked with this community, we took the format of a jacket and turned it into the dimension of a shawl. And when I asked the community members, is it okay that I'm using your indigenous textiles and motifs and turning them into a shawl? Does it hurt your sentiment? The reply that I got from this well-intentioned GI tag community is, as long as you say that it is Idumishimi, as long as you have given compensation to the weavers, and as long as it's made on the land of Idumishimi, we have no problem if you use this textile. So this is a really good example. Idumishimi community is a really good example of what a progressive GI tag registration or cultural preservation means. Yes, Varsha.
Yeah. So, Ritika, that was really wonderful. And we got lots much of information about why GI tag is important and how we can use it for benefit of leaves and benefit of cultural preservation. I would also like to know more about your study of ethnography through design and how it was helpful in your journey.
So, ethnography through design is ethnography through design is a study of ethnic communities represented through the medium of design. I'm very clear that it is a representation and not just a creative presentation, and should not be confused with the same. In these 12 years, I've been able to work with so many different ethnic communities, indigenous communities, and have used sari as a medium to represent them. Now, why sari? Because it is a large canvas. It allows me to bring in those indigenous weaves into the context of a sari that is otherwise always ruled out, because backstrap loom, heavy, sturdy, thick weaves cannot be imagined in a sari. Why not? Tapestry weaves cannot be imagined in a sari. Why not? When sari has evolved so much from its original form, has taken so many different forms according to the geography of a place, from no blouse, no petticoat to now blouse and petticoat, then why not stitch sari? So this is one canvas or a book called Sari that I have used as a medium to bring about the ethnography through design. And while work and through this pursuit of study, I got to work with various different communities, bringing one skill of the community to another, taking notes of what could be used better in another community to enhance or innovate their skills, working at grassroots, living with them, living in their houses, speaking their words, eating their food, wearing their clothes, reminding them that their culture is rich, that just because they do not live a modern life, just because they are still farmers, does not mean they are any way less or any way dependent on the outside world. They have their own fundamentals of wisdom and education that they can share, and they are not just artisans, they are teachers of craft. So from that lens, you can see some of the pictures of me with the artisans. Are you able to see the screen? Okay. So here, for example,
Yes,
I'm with
yeah.
Balti community and they're teaching me how to make tassels. Their tassels are so beautiful. And the other picture is with the Mishing community of Majuli, where we did sensitizing about cotton. We went village to village like a padyatra, and we did sensitizing about not using chemical clothing or synthetic clothing, but using cotton to preserve those textiles. So here are some of the other ethnic communities that I got a chance to work with: Apatani, Bruushui, Changpa, Idu Mishimi, I always take their name, Mompa. These are amazing communities, Dimasa, Karbis. Now I'm rooting for these names. I'm rooting for these names because these names are not spoken, they are hidden. Mainland India does not know the sentiment of Northeast India or the Himalayan communities. The hill and mountain communities need to be shown. They need that visibility, because this visibility will lead to their preservation and survival. We do not need to own Northeast. We do not need to own Himalayas. We need to preserve them. These are the remote communities that have still survived away from modern culture, away from very fast development, only because their terrain is so difficult to get through. Sometimes you have to walk 13 days, 14 days to go to places. So just our teachers. We do not need to save them. They need to save us. So that is the appeal on behalf of Northeast India that I want to bring out, that let's not be in a hurry to save them. Let's be in a hurry to be saved by them. So So my ethnography study developed, I realized that while working with different communities, that my interest or my personal favoritism lies towards working with communities that are farmers who are artisans and artisans who are teachers of craft, and somehow build a framework or structure that can bring ease to the artisan, and artisan can be at ease. And now how does that happen? When an artisan is performs a farming livelihood, then they're not empty stomach, they're not restless mind. They do not depend for their livelihood on artisanal work. In that respect, they remain masters of their craft because they don't have to become craft labor like mistri or jaldi jaldi kaam karo, get the work done, finish the order, finish the deadlines. That kind of culture is not there. They work in their available time. They work with passion. They work with their children and the sounds of the house and the bamboo and rain and crickets and fireflies, dragonflies. In the middle of that, Northeast people weave their textiles. And in that respect, they become teachers, because when you co-create with them and you sit with them and collaborate with them and sing their songs and say their words, they're teaching you by virtue of their wisdom every moment how we can live our life in a simple, compassionate way, farming, doing artisanal work, yet not being dependent, yet not be in a state of neediness or dependencies. And this is what I mean by artisan at ease. When the artisan's heart is at ease, they offer something to the world that is beyond just craft. They offer indigenous wisdom. So also, I realized that while pursuing my ethnography study, that when we are not going from a very fast-paced commercial pursuit towards production of textiles or understanding ethnic communities, you got to go slow. You got to move so steady, so lovingly, so compassionately that you are able to create very little great impact. And I love the concept of very little great impact. I do not want to create any kind of great impact, because great impact brings great problem. And as human, as a humble carrier of mistakes, I believe in small and steady steps that can bring small change. And these small changes have so much potential to ripple out and create a new culture of slow and steady. So from here, from this passion came the birth of Mora, which is intentionally homemade, intentionally family run, kept at a very small scale, so that the relationship with artisans is always harmonious. It is always of respect, because in 8 years, for example, I have made only 200 textiles, and they have sustained the livelihood for 8 years, because they were made so slow, so lovingly, in available time, when they would get time. Sometimes during pani kheti season or paddy cultivation, they don't weave for 5 months. And that is where Mora had to bring or give birth to a different kind of patience, different kind of slow production, small scale. And I think this has changed something of my heart inside, where slowly I saw myself connecting to communities, not just connecting with them, but connecting communities to their own culture through the medium of collaboration, credit, consent, right compensation for their indigenous knowledge, and drop control. I mean, I really, really want to take this platform to say a big disclaimer that I am against control, against ownership, against exclusivity. I think handloom sector could really bring forth this whole movement towards inclusively, and really work towards dropping concepts like exclusivity and exclusively. That will really bring waves of good change and collaboration and secure way forward. To enable this, Mora community is divided into two parts. One is the artisan side, other is the buyers. And now I truly believe that the buyer sensitivity leads to artisanal sustainability. If a buyer is empowered, if the buyer knows what they are investing in and what they are supporting, the artisan will be sustained by default. We don't even have to work towards it. And for that, on Mora platform, I share buyer empowerments where a buyer can see what kind of carbon footprint, what kind of impact, slow or fast, what kind of footprint, anything that they need to know regarding the background of a textile is openly shared with them. It will be there on my website, always for anybody to see, to the point of credits to who the community is and who are the makers. So this brings this connection of the makers to the buyers has brought a lot of reward to my heart. First is through the study of ethnography, indigenous communities have started to connect to the mainland. The fear, the insecurity, the feeling of smallness, inferiority is beginning to, in some ways, small little ways, started to come down. One of the happiest feelings is when I get a call from, say, Korea, or Nashik, or say some village in Tamil Nadu, and they take names like Dimasa, Idu, Adi, and when they take these names, they also ask for, is there a word that we could learn, how to say thank you, or is there a song? Then I sing songs to them on the phone. So this is how the bridging happens, when you start connecting words and their colors and why those motifs and why those hills and why those rivers. So when a Mora buyer buys a textile, they understand through the ethnography of design, they see through the purpose, and they directly support the better lifestyle for artisans who are farmers. They support the farming lifestyle while also making room for artisanal work to happen by default.
That was really great. And the transparent supply chain is something which every, not only handloom, but every fashion brand should have. And I just love about your idea of being transparent. And I myself, as a designer, I love to promote the transparent supply chain. And of course, the weavers are a heart of the whole supply chain, and they have to be treated as a co-creator. And I'm just loving this idea of co-creation. Ritika, we would like to have a very crisp glance at the project of Thevo, which you have done in Nagaland, and also we would like to know what are the initial challenges you faced during this project.
I think working with remote communities has never been a real challenge to the heart, because it's all about process, the fundamentals of going into remote regions, walking for days, crossing rivers, meeting communities that you have never seen, eating food. These are part and parcel of this decision. So those don't feel like a challenge, because I love it. I love the adventure involved in an ethnographic study. But the challenges that I have faced are also coming from the same things, which is I'm an outsider inside indigenous homes. I'm not an office bearer who is sitting from the office, getting the work done. I'm actually entering through the threshold of their house into their culture, eating their food. I'm a totally different face, different hair, different body, different language, different thoughts. Everything is different. Now, that takes so many years for trust to come by, and they observe you like seasons, like farming. Are you good? Are you coming back? Even if you make mistakes, it's fine, but you got to keep going back. And that's why 12 years have gone into just doing very little work, because all these years were spent building trust. But this trust is fragile, and while you deal with some people on a direct level and trust comes by, there are also waves of suspicion that are always hanging like a dark cloud. No matter how much I try to clear the dark cloud of suspicion, of intent, it's very, very hard to get rid of those kind of things from the hearts of people. Probably they are arising from lack of common language, and also the sentiment that is shared between mainland India and Northeast India primarily. When mainland India is ignorant about Northeast India will be negotiated in their identity, presence of their identity in this country as a whole. So it can give birth to some kind of anti-national sentiment or hate sentiment or vulnerability sentiment. So the challenge is that when I am inside these homes, I am the person who they see as whole of India, whereas I'm not whole of India. I'm one of the Indian who actually is in favor of Northeast India and not in favor of the mainland Indian hatred towards Northeast India. So that's one thing, that I'm always at the brunt of all the hate. So that's one challenge. And also the term designer. Usually the term designer is associated with money, power, glamour, and I am clearly not a designer because I've not studied designing, nor is it my full-time profession. I'm just pursuing designing of textiles as a medium. My interest is in ethnography. Today I'm working on textiles, tomorrow I could be working on bamboo, after that I could be working on construction of houses. The idea is to give identity to these rural, remote, indigenous communities that are not there in the mainland eye or the popular eye. So now I come to the question of the two beautiful projects that are result of all of this ethic of collaboration, reverse pyramid model of benefit to communities, transparency that have been born. Now, when Mora is bought, it gives me the resources to bring this ethic into practice. Now, this prototype that you see, which is a combination of Thebo project, Ahimsa Eri Silk project designed by Mora, it is nothing else but a representation of all the work that has been done in the last 12 years. Now, this particular textile not only will tell you clearly the geography of the place where they come from and why certain fibers were there and how these skills develop, but it will also show you clearly as a book, as a study, why we did certain kind of innovation and not the other. And with this, I would like to talk about the beautiful project called Thebo project. Now, this project has taken my breath, money, heart, mind, everything. And no matter how much I put into this project is not enough. And like I said, it's a research, art and documentation based livelihood, upskilling indigenous culture retention project at Zuketsa region with Chakkisang or Kujami community of Nagaland. It is made with collaboration, consent, compensation, and credit. Now, I could show you some of the pictures of this community. Thebo is basically the Kujale, the local dialect term for stinging nettle plant. And this is their indigenous skill, and they have been making this indigenous fiber for thousands of years. So when I came across this textile in 2010, it took me 4 years to actually start a project because 4 years went into research of what could be done with this textile to bring viability and sustainability in the modern context. We have something called Amezu coarse fiber. Amezu means grandmother. So anybody who is beyond 70 years of age gets double the honorarium, double the wages for their work done so that the tradition can continue. It's I mean, my heart goes out to grandmothers. If they move on, the tradition dies. They are a library. So got to keep the grandmothers, got to keep the tradition of the grandmothers going. Other project that I want to talk about is Ahimsa Eri Silk project, which is happening in Assam. Now, Eri Silk, everybody knows about. But Ahimsa Eri Silk is different from general Eri Silk. Ahimsa Eri Silk is made with intentional non-injury, where the silkworm is able to finish its natural life and birth cycle without the silkworm and cocoon being separated at the stage when the cocoon gets ready. So from 1 meter of Ahimsa Eri Silk fabric, about 1,200 silkworms complete their natural life cycle. Now, it sounds so romantically beautiful that we are able to save so many lives, but we do not know the impact of Ahimsa and non-Ahimsa. And this is the very nature of this project, to realize what is the impact of injury and what is the impact of non-injury. And that is why for the first 3 years of our project production, which is 2021 to 24, we will limit our production to only 1,000 meters a year and see what impact it creates on the environment around. And Like I said, proof of ahimsa is in the cocoon. So one must know when they're investing eri silk, whether it's ahimsa eri silk or just eri silk. The rearing is done with love, with care, inside the homes, no sericulture units. And I love it because I lived with the silkworms, thousands and lakhs of silkworms around me, and I tended to them for about 2 months and documented each and every cycle myself. Someday there will be another talk on ahimsa eri silk where I can show you these little worms growing from 2 mm to about 12 centimeters. This is our team. Now here is where I want to talk quickly about the importance of collaboration with indigenous communities. When there is a good collaboration like what we had with Tevo Project, we collaborated with Northeast Network, Chizami, and the Kujami community of Nagaland. And for Ahimsa Eri Silk, the main collaborators are Nor Mohan Dada, who is a national awardee textile innovator, along with the Kamrup district of Assam. When good collaboration happens, fear goes away, insecurity goes away, and it gives birth to a continuation of tradition which involves innovation without any feeling of loss, but actually addition. And from here, I want to just quickly show our weavers of Ahimsa Eri Silk along with Nor Mohan Dada. We work like this at grassroots. Now, this timing of this talk is so beautiful. National Handloom Day, and tomorrow is where I'm launching my collection after 8 years of study on moracollective.org, which is my website. You'll be able to see some of the textiles here. Please go to the website if you feel interested in the work I do or the way I think and process that is carried out. And also go through my blog if you really want to know what Jim Jam and what kind of ideas does this mind go through. I write a lot, and I believe that writing can help people think. So now I would like to, I've taken a lot of your time already, but I would quickly like to end this talk with you with this quote that we don't receive wisdom, but we must discover it for ourselves after a journey that no one can take for us or spare us. Each one's journey is their own. Each one's insight is their own. Each one's ethic is their own. And if the ethic is not based on ownership and copywriting and exclusivity, it leads to abundance. And everybody must experience abundance in their life. And Handloom connects. Thank you for using that slogan. Handloom does connect the magic of hands, heart, head, feet, and eyes. And let's cheer for collaboration, consent, compensation, and credit, and drop control. Thank you for this platform and giving me extra time to just say my heart out.
Thank you, Ritika. That was wonderful experience sharing. And I do believe that collaboration is the future of fashion. And if it has to be a circular economy, it has to go through collaborations. So thank you for that. And I must say it is a commendable journey so far in your efforts in bringing out the untapped and unseen handloom techniques.